again, this is UML Operator. All right, today we're going to talk about BPMN2. We're going to show some examples of BPMN2 and BPEL in action. In our last session, we focused on BPMN1. Not going to go into detail on each element, but I do want to talk about things like gateways and the evolution from BPMN 1.1 to 2.0. So in the previous episodes, we focused on the comparison between 1 and 2, BPMN 1 and BPMN 2. And as I was going through, there's things like the start events and rolling into gateways, is which I really want to talk about. You can see that there's some minor differences as we're moving forward through the various elements that we're going to use. However, when you're doing BPMN in the real world, you're really using a handful of elements more commonly than anything else. So I want to focus on gateways because this is where a lot of additions and benefits were provided as we move from 1.1 to 2.0. A lot more clarification in exclusive and exclusive OR and what the symbols look like and how you would use them, as well as your parallel and your parallel event-based. These decision points become very important within your BPMN modeling. So I want to focus on BPMN2 gateways for just a moment. You can see that as we move from 1.1, we added a marker within the exclusive gateway. Both of these are the same. There's no real difference between those, except for the marker that's involved here. And the exclusive gateway, also known as the exclusive OR gateway, as I've talked about before, is a type of gateway used to control the flow of process by determining which path to take based on specific conditions. And we're going to see this in action in just a moment. When we get to the event-based gateway here, the event-based gateway is a type of gateway used to control the flow of a process based on events. And this is unlike the exclusive gateway, which makes decisions based on data or conditions. The event gateway responds to events occurring within the process or from external sources. And we're going to see this in action in just a moment. Next is the complex gateway. And in the complex gateway, this is essentially for advanced routing capabilities for modeling complex decision logic and routing scenarios within a business process. This allows for multiple conditions to be evaluated simultaneously, enabling more flexible and sophisticated process modeling. So we use this decision gateway quite a bit in machine learning and AI, augmented business process flows, which I'm not sure we're going to get into in this particular session, but we'll talk about more later on in advanced sessions. Let's move to the inclusive gateway. And this one deals with multiple paths that may be taken concurrently based on inclusive conditions, allowing for more flexible and inclusive process modeling compared to the exclusive gateway that we talked about a moment ago. Then there is the parallel gateway. And this is used in process flows where multiple paths can be followed concurrently, allowing tasks or activities to be executed in parallel and then merged back into a single flow without any specific conditions. And then down here is the parallel event-based, and I misspelled event down there. Don't worry about that. I'll fix that later. And this is a specialized gateway that splits the process flow into parallel paths based on specific events, allowing for parallel instantiation of multiple process instances and concurrent execution of activities based on these events. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to cover this particular item within our models, and I'm still stuck on the fact that I need to fix the spelling here on that. No, there, I'm now satisfied. So I just wanted to talk about BPMN2 gateways for a moment as we're moving into examples. So in our first example using BPMN2, we start with our scope. So the client's given us some very simple scope here, just 5 scope items. These are very high level. They could drill down into 15, 50, 500 other requirements, but let's keep it simple for this exercise. So in this particular case, we're at a telecommunications company that provides fiber optics to its customers, business or consumer. And there's a customer experience, there's a qualification request. We're going to process whether a fiber is available, what speeds are available. We're going to check availability, and we're going to return based on that request availability. So when we go into a very simple model, no gateways here. What we have here are 2 participants or 2 pools. One is the portal, that's the front end application that's customer facing. And the other one is the qualification platform to determine whether a customer is qualified for this fiber product, what fiber product and service are available. So you have a start event in this case, which is a message event from the portal through an orchestrator for customer qualification. So the orchestration services here fire off a message event to the fiber qualification platform and then run through some sub-process here for availability and then returns whether availability is there for the customer or not. While you can see there are message-oriented events, there could be an event bus in between these participants where the qualification response is received and then the results are delivered into the front end to the customer and then the end qualification process. So very simple model, not complex at all, just using some simple activities, some participant pools to expose how these requirements may be satisfied during the conceptual beginnings of a particular project. We may develop our models, our BPMN2 models in Sparx, and then come up to publish and using Model Exchange, export those models using BPMN2. And we can export them in an XML format and then import them into other modeling tools such as Camunda. When we're doing model exchange, we go to export. We can choose BPMN2 or other export formats. We're going to use BPMN2 in this case. And you have various choices, XML types. We're going to use the BPMN2 XML type. You're going to go out to whatever your target environment is that you're exporting XML. We're going to leave all of the defaults here and we're going to select export and it's complete that fast. Then when we go over to our BPMN BPEL environment, in this case Camunda, we're in our new project area. We can upload the file that we just exchanged or downloaded from Sparx, and we can bring that file into our work area. So let's go ahead and upload the meal prep that we just did up into our environment, and then let's take a look at it. So from here, this BPMN model has been uploaded where it can now be executed and compiled and deployed within our BPMN BPEL engine. You can also do the reverse from a tool, a platform like Camunda. We've used ActiveVOS, we used open source activity, many tools. As I've stated many times, we tend to use Camunda with our various client stakeholders. You can develop your models, design them, and then move them to an implementation state, and then deploy them from your modeling platform. And again, this is Camunda, and start them, execute them, run through your testing and determine, is it user accepted, run it through its various tests. And these are very simple human task orchestration to completion. And then from a particular point here, you're allowed to download that model and then import it into a platform such as Sparx Enterprise Architect. Now, for the remainder of this demonstration, we have three models. We have one that deals with expense reimbursement, we have one that deals with order fulfillment, and we have one that deals with an inquiry, a log reply type of scenario, right? And in this case, we're using Camunda. So again, you can model in Sparx, as I showed, then you could export those and import those into a platform such as Camunda using BPMN2 XML. So what we did was, and what I'm going to give you a link to Camunda. They provide sample templates that you too can use that cover the expense report, cover order fulfillment example, and quite a few others, all right? So we're going to start with the expense report, all right? And in this particular case, I'm going to zoom in. We have a pool and we have 3 lanes. And we've explained to you, this is a choreography type of model. We have a pool that's expense and reimbursement. It has 3 participants, an employee, a manager, and then the finance department in here. We have a simple start event that's rolling into, and if we're looking over in properties, you're able to look at the properties involved with each element as we select them. All right. And this is all I'm going to cover at this particular point. I've already covered properties. So you have a start event, expense approval requested, rolls into a user event, activity, if you will. See, this type is activity using BPMN2 activity, and the activity type is a task, right? And that task for this human is to create an expense report, which then is sent to the manager in this lane right here, that they're going to review the expense report and then accept it or reject it. And that here we come into an exclusive or exclusive gateway that then either rejects it, and you have a default sequence flow. That's this dash through here. This is default. So if it's rejected, it will not go through the exclusive gateway to the finance department. It just goes right to rejected, and then you see a notification, abort rejection, and then the expense reimbursement is rejected, right? If the manager approves it through this exclusive gateway, it goes through an approval process to the finance department where they will review it and they will either accept it or reject it. And if they reject it, it goes through this exclusive gateway and then notifies the submitter that the expense reimbursement is rejected, right? So very simple flow using just a couple of gateways, if you will. Let me zoom in to this to understand what the business process flow is through the various participants in these lanes on this pool called expense reimbursement. So let's look at this actually being deployed, where we could export this if we developed it in Sparx into Camunda and run there. Or again, you could design and implement this in Camunda, and then for documentation and a plethora of other reasons I'll talk about near the end, bring it into your Sparx Enterprise Architect environment for further reuse. All right, so here we are in Camunda Modeler, and here's our implementation of the expense report. So let's go ahead, we're in implementation. Let's select the pool. Let's look at details so we can see this. So you can see this is a participant. It is called expense reimbursement. Here we have a lane called employee, a lane called manager, and a lane called finance processing. Inside the employee lane, we have a start event, rolls into a human task event, sequence flows to a user task for review expense report management, down into an exclusive gateway, to another human task event for finance, or if it's rejected, into an exclusive gateway. All right. And these have been defined with various properties to support the pass-through protocols, rules leading to whatever the end events are. So let's go over to play, and this is being compiled in our execution environment. And let's go ahead and run it. So when it starts out, it moves into the human task event right here, create expense report. There is a form that is thrown from the front end to the user, and we're going to go ahead and submit it. I just put some garbage data in here and complete it. It goes to the manager right here, and they review the report and either approve or reject. So I approve, I reject. First pass through we're going to do is reject. So they select reject. They put in some reason for rejection and they complete it. Now you can see what happened here. It went to the exclusive gateway and took the default path to this exclusive gateway, which then went right to notify rejection, and then it ended, it completed. Let's rewind. So we're going to rewind in this process flow, and this time the manager is going to approve the expense. You can see now it passes through this exclusive gateway, approved, question mark, and it was approved, so it takes this path to the finance department. They review it, and they determine whether they're going to reject or approve. In this case, we're going to have them approve it, and it goes straight through notifying of approval, reimburse expenses, and then right to the end event. So this is a business process model, BPMN2 model, that has been deployed into the execution environment for processing. Before we move on, I want to talk about the BPMN or BPEL service architecture. So this would be the execution engine right here, where the BPMN2, BPEL2 code is rendered and deployed. You have your receive handlers, pretty much technology agnostic. There's various technologies you can use for handling inputs and handling outputs or invocations. And so I want to talk about the role, the team that deploys this. So you have your BPMN, BPEL developers, and they're working with the business analyst that's listening, developing the requirements, interpreting those, working with the process designer who's building out the BPMN2 or the BPEL2 models, working with the integration analyst, architect, specialist that understands how to integrate across. This could also be a solution architect, application architect, or architects that understand how to integrate this low code, no code, or BPMN, BPEL implementation. So they're working with the BPEL developers who will be working in a tool like Camunda, ActiveVOS, Activity. There are many that are out there in the industry. I'm just going to keep referencing Camunda. So you have your BPEL developers that know their experience in Camunda, that can interpret the BPMN models and ensure that those are configured and deployed effectively. They're wrapping the right services that may be used for receive and invocation handling, orchestration, if you will, of the various technologies, whether it's Java, web services, Go, Python, C#. We program in all of these and more, so it really doesn't matter. So I just use the term orchestration, and I'm going to run out of time here. We'll do a separate session on choreography, but I did want to briefly touch on the differences between orchestration and choreography. So orchestration specifies the executable process between systems, all right, that we're dealing with. So one of the models that we looked at was expense reimbursement through the front end application, maybe to a finance system. And we've looked at other examples. Choreography represents the specific or specifies the protocols for peer-to-peer interactions, whether that's in BPMN or BPEL or some other language that's interpreted and being managed by the service architecture that is supporting your BPM and BPEL implementation. So I wanted to touch on orchestration and choreography just so that we have an understanding of what we mean when we're talking about choreography, what we're talking about when we say orchestration, because the terms are used all over the place. You know, you're dealing with a particular architecture that is, maybe it's a microservice architecture, that is, its specific role is orchestration for many other microservices or other RESTful events or whatever technology. It's just basically the gatekeeper, the orchestrator, and it's dealing with that. Then when we're talking about modeling and we're using orchestration, we're referring to such architectural approaches, system approaches, architectural styles. So I just wanted to be clear on that. The next thing was the roles. So understanding the various roles, and this could be one person that wears all these hats, or it could be a couple people that wear all these hats, or you're in a large enterprise, many resources, both machines and humans. Machines being that AI is coming into place. We've got ChatGPT. We have virtual assistants that we can deal with, that an analyst might be talking with a VA, a virtual assistant, and which is drawing back on the knowledge management intelligence and giving them instructions on how to interpret methods and procedures. So I just wanted to make sure we understand the roles, the importance of the roles. The bottom line is you have to test everything. Don't assume, hey, I did a really nice model and deploy it and it's doing the right thing, because automating a bad process can lead to exponentially worse things, versus automating a great or well done process. So just be cognizant of the roles and responsibilities and ensuring the right quality assurance is in place when you're building and deploying your models. All right, before we wrap up, let's look at a couple other models. And again, we're in Camunda. These are templates they provide for you, and I'll put a link to Camunda down below in the description if I can. And then let's look at this model. This model here is dealing with order fulfillment. What's very interesting is that you have some participants. These are pools that are out here that are, some might refer to these as collapsed pools. You could open these up and this model become quite a eye chart. But here's your front end pool. And there could be a lot of things going on, composite material underneath this. Here's your payment microservice. Here's your inventory microservice and your shipment microservice. So in this particular case, our focus is on this pool for order fulfillment. And inside this participant, you can see up here, participant, this pool, that there is a start event. This is a message event that triggers this flow. So you have here a service task for receive payment. Now, we didn't talk a lot about edge elements. This happens to be for error handling. This is an intermediate process on the edge of this service task element. So in this particular case, retrieve payment comes across, calls, this is a message event, calls the payment microservice, and then the microservice deals with payment. And then it returns, accept, reject, other data it can return in this response object right here, or this post. So if it is an error dealing with payment failed, then it triggers this workflow. Instead of proceeding to the inventory microservice, hey, the order's canceled. I mean, there's no inventory to draw on, it's being canceled, right? If it's successful, payment's successful, it goes to fetch the goods. Let's make sure we've got the inventory for this. Let's go get the goods and then prepare to ship the goods. So if it comes back and let's say, well, we're low or we're out of stock, there's a 2-day pass period as far as our commitment to ship is less than 48 hours or 2 days. There is a timer process here that may inform the customer that there's a delay in shipment. We see this on other online service providers. And then if the goods are there, they're extracted from the inventory is updated, handled all up here in this participant, and the goods are shipped. Shipment microservice is called, goes down through and deals with supply chain, and then the order is delivered to the customer or assumed. This could be a link going on to that particular customer experience, all right? And then there's the other end events. So let's go ahead and run this one and see what it looks like. All right, let's go ahead and test this workflow. You can deploy, run, but we're going to use this environment to test the workflow. All right, so we're not going to talk about the front end. Everything went well in the front end. We've received the order. So we go down into the order event. We could fail the order, complete with variables, populate that. We're just going to complete the job. All right, so it goes over to the inventory. If the inventory is not available, it goes into a timer event. Hey, past 2 days, we haven't shipped yet. So what's going on? We'll inform the customer, all right? So we inform the customer. It's not that it completes. It goes back to, hey, do we have the inventory? Could go another 2 days. We all don't like seeing that, right? Or complete the job. It goes to supply chain, shipment microservice, and it's deployed. It's complete. You have your log, your historical log event, which is available in any BPEL or BPMN platform. All right. So that is the order fulfillment flow. Let's look at another one. I promise, just one more. I'm having too much fun here. You can always skip to the next chapter. All right, we're going to look at one of my favorites, and that's SLA. So dealing with SLA. So service level agreement, I should be clear on, right? So in this particular model, this one's interesting because it has your edge event for messaging. So in this particular case, inquiry from a user is received. So this is an inquiry has been sent, posted from a site or what have you, and it's been received. Now, the user in this case, there's no participant or pools or lanes here. It's just an open model, which I do quite a bit of. And this is stating that this human here is going to answer the inquiry, right? And they could, during the answering point, they could retract their answer or so on. But in this particular case, they're going to send. This is a service send task. You can go over here, RESTful connection. That's what the R stands for, of whatever this service is for sending, right? And then you come here to an event-based gateway. I talked about that in the beginning of the video, this event gateway can run to a timer, intermediate catch event, and go to an intermediate message event, which is dealing with a catch event for log reply, right? So we're going to run this. During the timer event, we have a service level agreement that we're going to respond to our whatever customers or whoever's throwing this inquiry within 2 days. And we're going to do an SLA check. So let's go ahead and play this particular BPMN workflow. So we're going to go ahead and start it. Here comes the event. Here's the form. I've just put some garbage data here, answer customer inquiry, complete. It rolls to the send event, and the timer's going off down here. Let's go ahead and run it, complete the job. There we go. We're going to complete the job where it points to us to do that. Okay, so it goes to timer event. I'm going to skip this. We're going to go to the reply received event. We're going to go to the log entry event where customers reply, you populate this, and it's going to complete and it's done. All right. So this is used quite a bit, especially in People for People. That's business process execution language for people. It's a specific implementation of BPL2, BPEL2, which we were most excited about during the advent of BPMN2 and BPEL2. So quite a bit. Service level agreements, service level objectives are mission critical. And as far as workflow automation goes, should be built in every instance of delivery to your customers. All right, we've gone 30 minutes and I think I want to wrap this up. Matter of fact, I know I want to wrap this up. In the next session, I'm going to change things up. I think that I'd stated in the beginning when we started this that session 5 was going to be BPMN2, show and tell, and 6 was going to be specifically on BPEL. Today, I brought BPEL in kind of in a roundabout way as we were talking about BPMN2. So part 7 was going to be on People for People. And I talked about People for People in today's session. And then part 8 was going to be on choreography. And the next session is going to be on choreography. I really want to have this conversation. I think that some of you are going to be doing BPMN, whether it's 1 or it's 2, most likely, and hopefully it's 2. You're going to be using various platforms, whether it's open source activity or you go and take a look at Camunda. There's also other big vendors out there, Informatica, Oracle, I could go on and on. We just use Camunda quite a bit. We have for a long time, or at least my client stakeholders have, and we continue to implement that in the cases where we're not using homegrown or within our own cloud environment, something open source. All right, enough of that. Choreography, this is very powerful when it comes to projects where you're having problems eliciting requirements. So I've shown you how use cases and building scenarios are very helpful tools for requirements engineering, requirements development, especially elicitation. Trying to get the problem out of your customer, your stakeholders to begin with can be a challenge in itself. So we're going to talk about choreography in the next session, and then we'll wrap up with bringing it all together. And at that particular point, maybe we'll dive deeper into People for People. It all depends. I've gotten some great feedback so far. I'm trying to keep the sessions as short as possible. The courses that I've offered in the past, and I'll start that back up. I'm getting a lot of requests to do it again. They're quite long. I mean, today I'm taking 6 to 8 hour courses, daily courses, or spread over a week, and giving to you those in 30 minutes, or sometimes 60 minutes, but in a fraction of the time. It's hard to consume this information. I'm trying to tell people that I'm working with that, hey, you have ChatGPT. If you're not using ChatGPT, something's wrong with you. And I'm not talking about, Google's version or Bing's version. I'm talking about OpenAI's version. 3.5, it's free. So if you're not using that to help educate yourself, well, you're missing out. That's all I got to say. And so I'll talk more about that, share that, some tips and tricks there as well, because I'm retired. I'm really here to pay it forward, pass on my knowledge and my experience. I'm giving a lot away for free. So we're starting the Discord channel here very quickly. Thanks. You all been pushing me. So start that. That'll be a forum for many of you to collaborate and share. I'll be putting some XML files, some of the material that we're using in the demonstrations there, especially when we're having the BPMN conversations. I don't teach coding in this channel. That's up to you to learn how to code, whether you're using, Python, C#, Go, Java, whatever, right? That's up to you. With BPMN and BPEL, it's technology agnostic. As I showed you today, you could be using Java in one service platform and you could be using Go in another one, and you could be using Python or C Sharp in another one. That's the power of model-driven development, model-driven architecture. I hear a lot of you talking about low code, no code, right? And it's still a fantasy. People that are selling you no code platforms, they're not cheap. They're selling you black box, they're hard to configure, customize. So just be wary and be careful. In the area of BPMN and BPEL, it's low code if someone else is coding reusable patterns and reusable code for you to wrap with your BPMN and BPEL processes. It's very low code. You're just grabbing little bits and pieces and putting it into a process flow and executing it. So we'll have sessions on black box, open box, low code, no code, and model-driven development, model-driven architecture as we proceed. Again, I added 5 minutes onto already a long video. If you stuck around, thanks very much. And until the next time we meet, happy modeling.